Well, good evening. It's good to be with you again on the Kevin Cook Show. And Heidi Hollis, my trusty co-host, is on with us. And got an
Indeed.
interesting guest, a very interesting guest, and Gary Parker. We're going to talk about alien messages and pyramids. And, this shouldn't be your average show here. I mean, this is some pretty wild stuff. And the pyramids have always interested me anyway, Heidi.
Should be fun. Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, there's no way they were constructed the way they taught us in school, where they had logs and they rolled it. They've had several shows over the years that debunk that it would have taken basically the entire army of Egypt to have accomplished what they did. And of course, Egypt would have crumbled as an empire. They couldn't have done it. So in other words, there had to be more to the story in there somewhere than, just bringing the big old giant stones up a bunch of logs and, by manual labor. It just didn't work that way physically. But anyway, we'll get into all that with Gary later. And now, I mean, this is a bizarre story. And Trump kind of showed his hand a few days ago when he was talking about releasing the JFK files Thursday.
Yeah.
Unless otherwise advised. He had that corollary in there.
And we learned of this earlier because we were both contacted to have a certain somebody on the shows, both of our shows.
Well, this is pretty bizarre because, 50 years ago, they sealed these records to be released. The 50th anniversary beats Thursday. And Heidi, if someone doesn't think that was a con, they've never run across a con. I remember way back in antiquity, this is circa like 68 or something. I was a kid, and NBC had a special on it. And they got not just, marksmen, just an average Marine like Oswald was. They got super expert marksmen to try to duplicate what he did, a couple of them, with that Mannlicher Carcano rifle, which was just a cheap Italian rifle.
Yeah.
Couldn't do it, Heidi. Couldn't do it. And, of course, the story about it, the magic bullet, which was supposed to, hit Kennedy, turned around, picked a bale of cotton, rode along and had a Coke. In other words, stuff the one shot couldn't do.
A trick shot. I've seen that in pool. Yeah.
But this was stuff that, and then the coup de grace was, who the heck said to this? What was it? The mortician that did the autopsy, the doctor did the autopsy, to burn the notes of the autopsy. Who in the hell gave him permission to do that?
Yeah.
Nobody does that.
Nope.
And but there were so many negatives, and then of course all kinds of witnesses wound up croaked, and all this stuff. But back to the story, though, is what the heck could they be covering up after all these many years? All the participants would be dead except George Bush Sr.
Well, we're going to find out some more firsthand knowledge about that. When are we having Judith come on?
Oh, a couple days.
Yeah, that'll be pretty cool. I got the opportunity to have her and Jim Mars on at one point. That's the fiance or the girlfriend of Lee Harvey Oswald we're talking about. So yeah, so that's pretty cool.
I know, but this just smells a rat. Now, I will say this, and we'll get off this point, but I will say this. George Bush Sr. was actually in Dallas that day on some official capacity, and nobody knows what. And who knows if he had a snoot in it? I don't know.
Should be fascinating.
Well, it'll be different. It sure will. And we do have a show coming on soon. Now, in your beloved Los Angeles in California, it's 103 degrees today.
Yeah.
103. Why are you and Joe so crazy about this hellhole?
Well, you guys get crazy temperatures in Florida and the bugs stick to you because it's so humid.
Oh, they just are being cuddly. There's nothing wrong with them. And the humidity just keeps you from drying out.
Give me the dry heat any day.
Yes, but I grew up in both places, and I love the Northeast. It's cold, it's dreary, and it's just nice. The sun's covered up. It's just
Speaking of cold and dreary, here in Chicago, been raining pretty much 3 days straight. It's just gross out.
I wish I could be there with you.
No, it'll get really cold soon. You won't like
I
it.
like that. No, I do like the cold. I don't care if it's minus 20.
Oh, well, Wisconsin, we've had this thing called 50 below where like your nose hairs freeze and it's like feels like caps on your nostrils because your
Oh,
nose
yeah?
hairs freeze together. Oh my gosh. I mean,
No,
it's
I've
funny
never
because
had that.
I look at people and I ask them, have you ever experienced such a thing? And then I'm like, then you don't know what cold is.
I guess I don't. I've been at minus 25 and was singing in the rain, but I guess minus 50 is a step beyond it.
Oh,
I mean,
gosh.
I might have been in minus 28 at one time, but never any more than that.
Oh, it's bad. I mean, it's not like typical to have that in Wisconsin all the time, but nose hairs freezing together to feel like you got caps on the end of your nostrils. A lot of Wisconsinites are listening right now going, yeah, I know that feeling. With Chicagoans, too.
Well, I mean, I remember last time I visited my daughter at the University of Colorado, it was minus 25, and I was just happy as a kid in the meadow, jumping up and down. I mean, I thought it was wonderful. But at any rate, someday I'll slither back to New York and enjoy it.
Indeed.
But anyway, speaking of which, UFOs were doing wheelies all over Long Island October 1st.
Cool.
They don't know what they were, and nobody's identifying what it was, but what it was weird. And and in honor of Pam Geller, who's going to be on next week, I know you're going to be AWOL.
Yes.
A Muslim cleric named Ahmed bin Saad al-Qurani, who's a Saudi, said that women who incite rape by dressing provocatively and wearing perfume and stuff.
That is a common notion.
So that, in other words, that men are just completely innocent, no matter. I mean, which is of course absurd. But anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in.
But also, this was the truth of the matter. 20 years ago, when women accused men of raping them, and they're like, "Well, what were you wearing?" That was part of the code here too. They're just a little behind.
Well, not that
Come on, come on, Kevin. You're 1,000 years old. You've heard that.
No.
Come on.
Well,
really,
no, I know I'm 1,000 years old, but I never had to rape it. Mostly they wanted to rape me.
But you never looked into women that had a fight for the right to be able to say, I should be allowed to wear a skirt and not be raped, because that was always brought up. What were they wearing? No, this was a common thing. I'm saying that was in the court system. If a woman was raped and they accused a guy of it, that was brought up. Yeah, it was like that was defense. Well, what were you wearing? Like men can't control themselves. That's just historical fact.
That wasn't
that long ago.
I was a pretty hot commodity.
Well, I'm not talking about you. I know you gotta say you were a stud. I know. Well, guess what? I modeled, but I don't talk about it.
Well, I'll talk about it. Yes, I was. But at any rate, that's not the issue. The issue is we're coming up to the top of the hour break, and we'll be back with Gary Parker. We'll be right back. Well, it's good to be back with Heidi, and we've got Gary Parker on with us. And Gary was born and raised in Wilmington, Delaware, and moved to Los Angeles, and where he's a real estate developer and movie script writer, and he created Parker Rose Productions and wrote a movie that was called Thank Heaven with Jenny McCarthy, which I've always been in love with her. And he's written a fantastic book on the pyramids. And Gary, the pyramids have always been very fascinating to me because, I've seen shows on them over the many years. And, they obviously weren't built the way they taught us in school, where, they had logs and they rolled the giant stones up there and got them within credit card distance between the two stones. I mean, couldn't happen. Matter of fact, Gary, at one time it was estimated that it would have taken the entire army of Egypt like 50 years to do that, and the whole civilization would have fallen apart if they didn't have an army. So in other words, it didn't happen the way they told it. That's all I'm saying.
Gotcha.
So tell us about how you got interested in this field.
Well, Kev, actually, you had mentioned I had written a book. I did not write a book.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I wrote the screenplay for the movie, Thank Heaven, I meant.
Oh, yeah, yes, okay. Yeah, I just want people to know that because usually they say, well, if they usually say, well, where can I find it? Or I just don't want your listeners to think that I wrote a book. So.
No, I meant to say screenplay, yeah, okay.
Okay, yes. So your question was, how did this all come about?
Yeah.
What happened was a little over 2 years ago, I was trying to come up with a great idea to promote world peace, and I thought this would be a good idea. What if the whole world tried to throw in some money and restore the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx? And when I say restore it, I don't mean make it into perfect condition. I mean every time you look at the Sphinx and the Great Pyramid, they're falling apart. Egypt is $284 billion in debt. They have rolling blackouts throughout Cairo. And I thought, how fun would it be kind of to bring the world together, like with a global crowdfunding, and restore the Great Pyramid of Sphinx with, like, putting some stucco on it. Now, when I say stucco, I don't mean the kind they put on houses. I mean, you get a sample from the second pyramid that's still there, ancient stucco, and you figure out and you put it together and you try to make it, and you put it on the pyramid. Exactly, that's the word, thank you. Replicate it. So what happens is, I think this is a great idea, and out of 193 countries that are in the United Nations, I thought, well, probably 183 would love this idea, and all the people on the planet love the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx, most of them. So what happens is I went and I pitched it to a couple Hollywood producer friends of mine. I said, what do you guys think of this idea? They said, Gary, we love it. This sounds really like a Hands Across America type deal, other than it's going to be global. And they said, yes, you should do this. So I said, do you guys have any billionaires' email addresses? Because what I want to do is I want to get between 5 and 15, maybe even $20 million seed money to get this thing going. So one of my producer friends said, yeah, I have Sir Richard Branson, from Virgin Atlantic and Virgin Galactic. I have his email. And he said, Gary, whatever you do, don't tell him where you got the email. And I said, don't worry. I'm just going to... Yeah, exactly. So,
what?
Gosh. Yeah, I know. So then the other producer said, Gary, I have Elon Musk's email address, but you can't tell him anything. I said, don't worry. I won't divulge anything. And I said, guys, the chances of them emailing me back are pretty slim. But in my head, I was thinking, these are the kind of guys who would love to, because these guys, people who are billionaires, they think they're pharaohs anyway. So if they have any way to be connected to the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx, they're going to probably return my email. So,
right.
So anyway, and I forgot to say, Heidi and Kevin, thank you so much for having me on the show.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, I forgot to say that at the beginning. I apologize.
Oh, it's all good. No, it's all gravy.
Okay, thank you. So what happens is I shoot out an email with the heading "Restore the Great Pyramid and Sphinx, global crowdfunding. Would love to hear your opinion." So I send it out to Elon Musk and to Sir Richard Branson. Guys, the next day, in the morning, like I'm going to say 8 o'clock in the morning, I get an email from Sir Richard Branson. The first thing, and believe me, it's his email, it's him, and he says, Gary, I don't know how you got my email, but I love this idea. He says, I love it. And he said, I would love to be part of it if this is for real or if it's a joke. Well, I emailed him right back, and I said, Sir Richard, thank you so much for hitting me back. I said, it's not a joke. I'm actually going to try to put it together. Now, like you said at the beginning, Kevin, I had built houses and in a couple condo complexes in Los Angeles, so I know how to do construction. But this is huge. Well, so I said to Sir Richard Branson, I said, I have a lot of months to do as far as research. I'll get back to you. Give me 4 or 5 months, and I'll get back to you, but thank you so much. And he actually emailed me back, and he said, Gary, here's the number to my foundation in New York. I CC'd them, so you can talk with them or you can email me. I said, awesome. So then 10 minutes after I had emailed that last email, I don't get an email from Elon Musk, but I get an email from a lady by the name of Gwyneth Shotwell. And Gwyneth Shotwell is the president of SpaceX. And that's owned by Elon Musk. And she said, Gary, Elon doesn't know how you got his email, but we both love this idea. Is it for real or is it a joke? And I sent her back an email right away, thank you so much, because, she's the president of SpaceX, for gosh sakes. Sure. So I said, this is amazing. So I emailed her back. I said, thank you. Give me a few months. I'll have more details for you. I have to put a lot of things together. So what happens is I'm sitting here going, oh, my God. I pitch it to a couple producers. 2 days later, I get emails back from billionaires, and they're interested. So I think, this is amazing. This is really going to happen. You know what I mean? It was like blowing me away. But I thought it's all a positive vibe because it resonated, because it's about peace and about bringing the world together on a project. So anyway, then I said, well, you know what? I should, only because it's Egypt, and they don't want foreigners coming into their country and taking over anything. So I figured I'd better contact the ambassador in Washington, D.C. from Egypt. So I email his office. The next day, his secretary emailed me back, because I had mentioned that Elon Musk, Gwyneth Shotwell, and Sir Richard Branson loved the idea, and the secretary, the ambassador's secretary, said that the ambassador says, Gary, if you can put this together, he will present it to the Antiquities Department, but you have a lot to do. And I said, absolutely.
Holy
thank
smokes!
You. Guys,
wow.
I'm telling you, it blew me away. Now,
bigger and bigger.
Guys, it's unbelievable. No, but you got to remember, because I was in Hollywood, and I'm a total hack. I'm a total hack. Believe me, I'm a hack writer. My partner, Margie, though, she was the writer. But I was the guy who would go in and do the pitch to the studios. So I was always good in the room with a pitch. And so I thought to myself, this is a great pitch. It's going to come together. My God, everybody's getting on board. Plus, you got to remember, the budget that I kind of ballparked in my head to do this restoration was approximately $7 billion over a 10 to 12-year period. So you got to remember, with that kind of money, everybody in Egypt's going to get paid. And we're only going to use Egyptian workers. Their biggest construction company would be doing this project. So everybody in Egypt would make money, and the government would make money, and everybody would be happy. That was my plan. So anyway, it's a good plan, right, guys?
Yeah.
I would say so. What an undertaking. Yeah. I'm just like, thank God you've got the energy to do this, because I don't know many people that could even think of juggling such a thing. That's amazing.
Well, no, but like I said, at first I thought, well, this is really big, but it's really kind of fun. But as soon as the billionaires emailed me back, I thought, holy cow, I can put this together. Let's go, So what happens, I was real excited, guys, and I put the cart before the horse, and I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to download a couple NASA photos of the Great Pyramid. I'm going to zoom in and see where you can put men and machinery, because as you know, the Giza Plateau is sacred land. You can't take a stone off of that area, or you could be arrested or you're fined. You can't climb up the Great Pyramid. You can't do anything, because that's sacred land. Okay.
Right.
So, but I thought, you know what? I was so excited about it, and I thought, I'm going to zoom in anyway. I'm going to get a photo. So what I did, and if it's okay, if I can give. I'm sorry, guys. Somebody's calling in. Don't worry about that. I apologize. I told nobody to call me right now. So anyway, so what happens is, I go to the NASA website, and I use this file number. And like I said, I want to read it to your audience just in case. And do you guys have the photos downloaded onto your computers?
I'm looking at it now.
It's Heidi. I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So because a lot of people have said to me, well, Gary, what's the file number to NASA? Well, this is the number. It's ISS 032-E-009123. That's ISS 032-E-009123. Now, what happens is I get the photo and I download it, and this is another thing for your listeners, guys. In order to zoom in close enough to the Great Pyramid to show you what I'm going to tell you, you actually have to go to download image on the photo, and it will say full size. If you don't click on full size, you can't zoom in close enough to the pyramids. Okay, so anyway, I download the photo, and most people, this photo anyway, was taken by the International Space Station. It's not a satellite image. It's an actual astronaut who has a huge Canon camera, and he sticks it up to the window and he takes pictures. So that's the picture that you're downloading. So anyway, so when I zoom into the Great Pyramid from the sky, I see something that looks like shadows right beside the Great Pyramid. Right beside it. When I say beside it, when you're looking at the photo, going up, which would be north, it's actually south, and down is north. to the right is west, to the left is east. It was actually downloaded upside down by NASA, and it was downloaded onto the internet on July 26, 2012. Okay? So anyway, so I zoom in on an area which runs east and west along the southern side of the Great Pyramid, and I see these things that look like shadows. And as I zoom in closer, the shadows turn into letters. Now, not English letters, but some kind of I'm going to call them alien letters, or kind of a mix between Aramaic, Hebrew, some other ancient civilization, maybe even a little bit of what's the Egyptian language called?
Hieroglyphics.
Hieroglyphics, yeah. Oh. So there's all these things in here, but it looks like letters. It looks like. So what I did was I wrote it down on a piece of paper, and as a matter of fact, if you're looking at well, anyway, I'm sorry, I'm jumping around, but
the NASA pyramid pictures, I put it up in the chat room so people can see it.
If you scroll down to that last photo, you'll see the letters that I had written on a white piece of paper.
Yes.
Okay, I don't know if you can scroll down on your.
I see them. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what happens is, like I said, I write them down, and I say, that says something. I'm sure it says something. I take a photo with my phone, and I email it to Judaic scholars one Judaic scholar down here at the University of Arizona. I email it to two Egyptologists in Cairo. I email it to a few Aramaic scholars in the Middle East, and I think one more Judaic scholar in Israel. And I say to them, can anybody, and just for your listeners to understand, I don't know these people. If you Google any university, you can pull up these people, and they're experts. They've worked on Dead Sea Scrolls. They're geniuses.
They're legit.
And they're totally legit, and they're professors. Yeah. At the college. But anyway, so what happens is the next day I get an email from a very famous Egyptologist, and her name is Dr. Salima Ikram, and she's actually the head Egyptologist at the American University at Cairo. And she says, Gary, where did you find this? And she said, it does say something, but I don't know what it says. And I emailed her back, and I said, I found it in a NASA photo beside the Great Pyramid. And she says, can you send me that photo? Because as you guys know, anytime you talk about anything about the Great Pyramid, people think you're nuts. They just think you're a nutty guy. Well, and I totally accept that. So all of a sudden, she says she sees the next day she emails me back, and she says, Gary, did you Photoshop this? And I said to her, I said, go to the NASA website, and I gave her that file number. I said, look at it at the NASA website, and you'll see the exact thing, because I did not Photoshop it. Sure. Maybe about 2 hours later, she emails me back, and she goes, Gary, this is impossible. And I said, well, do you know what it says? And she says, no. She said, but Gary, from space or from the sky, it looks like a shadow. But as you zoom in, she goes, those shadows turn into these letters that you sent me. She goes, but here's the thing. She goes, Gary, on that side of the pyramid, there's only one little museum where they had discovered a pharaoh's boat, and they built a small museum. She goes, there's no buildings or any mounds on that side of the pyramid that could make these letters appear. And I said, well, that's amazing. And she emailed me back. She goes, yes. She goes, it's impossible. And she said, give me a few months. Let me work on this. I'm going to send it to a few of my colleagues, and we'll get back to you. I said, fantastic. Thank you so much. In the meantime, guys, what happened was the Aramaic scholar, the two Aramaic scholars in the Middle East, and the Judaic scholar here in the University of Arizona, they email me back, and they say they actually tried to translate it. They said, well, we see the word I, we see an M, and maybe God or Creator. And they said, but we're not sure. And they all emailed me back and said, where did you find this? And I said, in a NASA photo of the Giza Plateau beside the Great Pyramid. And as soon as I said that.
Gary, I don't mean to interrupt you. It's fascinating stuff, but we're coming up to our bottom of the hour break. We'll be right back.
My bad.
Well, it's good to be back with Gary and Heidi, and I didn't mean to interrupt you. It was just so fascinating. It was a bad timing for the break, but go ahead with where you were on that.
I'm like on the edge of my seat. This is really cool.
It really
Great. I think it's yeah, it's amazing. So what happens is, and you got to remember, guys, this started a little over 2 years ago. So I've been doing meeting with a lot of people and doing this stuff. And anyway, here we go. Back to the story. So what happens is after I find those letters, I'm looking on the photo, and I look above the third smaller pyramid, and I start seeing. I forgot to mention. When I emailed it out to the Judaic scholars and Aramaic scholars in the Middle East, they asked me, this is where we left off, they asked me, where did you find this? And as soon as I said, beside the Great Pyramid in the Giza Plateau, 3 of them said, we don't have anything to do with you. This is a joke. So they cut me off. Now, yes, it was bad. But the cool thing was as before I had gotten that email back from them where they said, Gary, this is a joke, you photoshopped it. What happened was above the third smaller pyramid on the NASA photo, I found ancient Hebrew. And what happened was I knew it was Hebrew because when I saw it, I said, my God, that looks like Hebrew. And then I went to, I Googled Hebrew, ancient Hebrew, and Hebrew, and actually pictures of the Dead Sea Scrolls. And I wrote it down, and I sent it to the same guy, his name down at the University of Arizona, whose name is Dr. Edward R. Wright, very famous guy, worked on the Dead Sea Scrolls, has been doing it for 40 years. And I sent him this ancient Hebrew, and I said, Dr. Wright, can you tell me what this says? And he emails me right back, and he says, yes, it says God and the Lord of the underworld. And he said, Gary, you got to come down here and show me where you found this in the NASA photo. So I made it, and I'm only an hour and a half away from the University of Arizona. So I hop in the car, I go down, and he meets with me, and he sees it. And he says, Gary, he goes, this is impossible. He says, what you're showing me is impossible. And I said, yeah. I said, it's totally insane. And he said, listen, he said, Gary, you walk into my office. I don't know you from anybody. He says, I've been doing this my whole life. I'm close to retirement. He says, I can't have anything to do with this. And I said, well, why not? I said, why not? He goes, because, Gary, he says, I have a reputation, I'm not going to be finding things in the NASA photo. And I said to him, I said, Dr. Wright, what better place for someone, either an alien or a god, to communicate with our planet than a NASA photo? I said, because it's hard to refute. How many people could hack into NASA and do this to their photo? I said, and not only that, but it's Egypt. I said, it's perfect. And he said, Gary, I don't know if you're a computer genius. And he goes, and I don't know how you know ancient Hebrew. He said, but it's perfect. You wrote it perfect, and I think you photoshopped it. And I said to him, I said, Dr. Wright, go to the NASA website and look at it. You'll see it. Don't even look at the photo I sent you. Go to the NASA website. And he said, I don't have time for that. I have 10,000 students.
That sounds like an academic, yeah. That sounds awesome.
Dude, believe me, I've met with many of them. And so, anyway, but after, it just was amazing that he translated this so quickly and he knew what it said, and it was awesome. But anyway, so what I did was, if your listeners download this NASA photo, and if they look at it, they have to look at it, download it onto a laptop computer. Be in a dark room, zoom in, and tilt the screen back. Like, put the screen at a 45-degree angle and tilt it back. You will see that this photo has 4 levels to it. Now, when I found the levels, because when all this stuff was happening, guys, I said, oh, my God, this is some kind of message, and no one's believing me. But that's okay, because I'm kind of like the guy, the Terminator. I won't stop, especially with something like this. It's just amazing.
Love it.
So what happens is I Google Arizona State University, which is an hour away from me, and I go up and I make a meeting with 2 professors who actually know how to build software, because I'm saying this has 4 levels to it. This is impossible. So what happens is I go and I meet with these 2 professors, Dr. Gupta and a Dr. Whitehouse. They look at the photo and they see the ancient Hebrew, and they see the other stuff beside the Great Pyramid and a few other things that I found. And they said, Gary, look, they go, this has 4 levels to it. We don't have this technology. They said, we build software. There's no way we could have done this. They said the only people who could have done this is NASA, and why would they do it in their own photo? I said, guys, go ahead. Kev?
No, I just said they wouldn't. I mean, of course they wouldn't.
No, they wouldn't. They said it would be ridiculous. So then what happens, I said, guys, and Dr. Gupta actually said to me, he said, Gary, he got a magnifying glass. We shrunk the picture down a little bit onto the laptop. He zoomed in with his magnifying glass. He goes, Gary, here's another thing. He says, on this photo, there are no ones. It's a binary code of all zeros. And I said, well, does that ever happen? They said, no, all binary codes are 1 and 0. This has all zeros. He goes, this is impossible. They said, and they both said, we can't have anything to do with this. I said, well, I've heard that before. So anyway, so then I said, you know what? Since there's ancient Hebrew in this, maybe. And so anyway, they kicked me out of their office. So
hold on. This is a great example of how different pieces of knowledge and history gets like shunned and kept away from society. So totally dismissed. It's like, this is ancient. This is thousands of years old, and they still feel threatened. If they didn't discover it for themselves from the start or from the get-go, and they didn't have the chance to explain it to the world, they're gonna just poo-poo anybody that comes across something because, oh my gosh, we got to rewrite all the history books or something.
They're mostly gutless worms. They're mostly gutless little goatee-pulling worms.
Well, it's just nuts.
Guys, let me just say this. Yes, it was frustrating, but in their defense, let me just say this. Some guy walks into your office. He turns off all the lights. He shows you this photo. He shows you this stuff. In 30 minutes, it's like a tsunami of information. They're drowning. They're going, this is impossible. Now, if they had time and they had open minds like people with the paranormal community, yes, they'll listen, they'll pay it, and they'll look. But these guys, they do. In their defense, they have thousands of students. Some guy walks in, throws this in front of them. It's too much.
But hold on. Were you able to handle it? Because we're handling it okay. That's the thing. It's like, they don't tell us about the aliens sitting on the moon because they don't know if society can handle it. Like, the guys that are monitoring the aliens on the moon can handle it. So I think the rest of us can do it. Come on now.
Well, not a lot of academics.
They can. They just are limited. They need their money.
Well, okay, that's it. A lot of them actually said, well, I'm going on vacation. And I said, your vacation's more important than this message? They said, yes. I said, all right.
Yep.
So then, so back to my great story. So what happens is, I say, well, you know what? Since there's so much Hebrew in this, I'm going to have a meeting with some rabbis up here in Phoenix. Yeah. So what I do is I go over to there's a couple Orthodox places up here in Phoenix with these guys who that's all they do. They're nonstop into the Torah. They know the whole 9 yards. And so I go to their room. I go to them and I meet with 5 of them. But I actually met 3 and 2 at different times. Okay, the first 3 guys, they look at it and they say, Gary, we see the thing that says God and the Lord of the Underworld. They said, but beside that is a date. There's a date written in Hebrew. And I said, what's it say? They said July 26th, 2022. And I said, well, that's amazing. They said, does that mean anything to you? And I said, well, no. I said, but the photo was downloaded onto the Internet on July 26th, 2012. And they said, well, Gary, so I said, well, that's a little bit of a coincidence. So they said, well, Gary, here's our 2 problems with you. And I said, what's that? They said, first of all, what you showed us. Now, you got to remember something, guys. I've seen a lot more things, and I showed the rabbis a lot more things. And I also showed the professors at ASU a lot more things, which they saw. The rabbi said to me, Gary, what you showed us is in the Torah. It's in the thing called their eschatology, which is a prophecy thing. They said, but here's our problem. 2 of them. The first one is this. You're not Jewish. They said the second thing is we believe that only miracles happen in Israel. And I laughed at them. I said, that's a joke. I said, right? And they go, no, we really believe it. And I said, wow. I said, I've never heard that. I said, guys, I said, so you're telling me if your Messiah showed up today, you say, well, it's in Phoenix. It can't be the guy. And I said, yeah, we wouldn't believe it. I said, well, guys, that's so narrow. So they kicked me out. You know, they gave me the old.
Just a bit limiting. Yeah.
But then what was great was he had given me that. Just know this: every meeting I've been on was never a waste because the guys always said something that helped. And the rabbi gave me that date. So I said, well, that must mean something. So I come back to my house and I say, well, you know what? It's time to get in touch with NASA. You know what? Because NASA, it's their photo. They're bound to be interested in it. So guys.
They missed airbrushing that one. Darn it.
That's funny. That's very funny. So what happens is
That's very true too.
I come back and I Google. There's a place called the Ames Research Center in Northern California, and you can Google. And as and it pops up, and the people who run the place, their email pops up. So I figure, look, I'm the guy who's trying to restore the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx, and I have Sir Richard Branson and Elon Musk and Gwyneth Shotwell who dig it. And I said, you know what? These clowns at NASA are going to pay attention to me, and they're going to get back to me. Like, I had no doubt that they were going to get back to me, but I thought it might be a long, long time. So I email a couple physicists and a guy who is the director/president of the Ames Research Center, whose name is Dr. Peter Warden, okay? Guys, I email him. The next morning at 6 in the morning, he emails me back, and he says, send me the photo. I want to see it. Now, the first thing in my head was, yes, I'm a genius. Yes, I'm putting this whole thing together. But I thought, my God, a guy who's running the Ames Research Center is going to email me back? Something's up. Something must have clicked on their website when it said, when I put the heading Egypt, alien message, beside the Great Pyramid, something clicked. They want to see it. Something's up. So what happens is I email him the photo with instructions on how to see the things. He emails me back 20 minutes later, and he says, Gary, I can't see it. I say, I said to him, Dr. Warden, make sure it's on a laptop, make sure you're in a dark room, and call me. And we'll go over it over the phone, just like I'm talking to you guys. He said, okay. He calls me maybe like 15 minutes later. He goes, I'm in the dark room. I said, okay, now, open the computer screen, tilt the screen back, zoom in on the Great Pyramid. And I had emailed him the letters and everything. And he said, I see them. I go, okay, great. I said, now I'm going to show you the other letters. I said, go a little bit above, which is, remember, it's upside down. So I said, go south. And onto the plateau. He goes, I see it. I said, now there's two other things I want you to see. So I showed him. I don't know if you guys can see it. You can't see it, Kevin, but Heidi can.
Yeah.
On the photo, there's a white wash. That's actually a white wash, and it's called Ring Road. And when it leaves the Giza Plateau, it goes into an 8-lane freeway going into Cairo, and it crosses the Nile River, which you can see. It looks like a cross on the photo. I don't know if you can see it there. So anyway. Okay, so what happens is, and remember, to the left is east, to the right is west, and on the left is Cairo. So anyway, Dr. Warden, I said, can you see this image above Ring Road on the whitewash? Tilt your camera. He goes, I see it. He goes, Gary, do me a favor. He goes, I see everything. He says, give me a couple weeks. I want to talk to my superiors about this, and we're going to get back to you. I said, fantastic. Thank you. This is great. This was the first yes I heard, and it's coming from NASA. So this is great. So 3 weeks, well, it gets worse. 3 weeks later, I see on the internet, Dr. Peter Warden retires from NASA. He gets together with Stephen Hawking, the great physicist, and they get together with a Russian billionaire, and they start a company searching for ETs.
Oh my God! You know what? I swear to God, I was going to say you're the only person you haven't contacted is Stephen Hawking, and here he is, but he's just not associated with your side of it. Wow.
So anyway,
he ripped you off a bit.
Well, you know what? In the long run, it won't matter. So what happens is I'm sitting there going, oh, my God, this. Plus, I tried to email him, and he cut off all contact with me, and so did NASA. So I said, okay, all right, I get it. All right. So what happens is, and if you guys have any questions, please jump in.
No, for sure. I'm jumping.
Okay. So what happens is I was a little depressed. Now just to make it clear to you guys and to your listeners, I have never ever had a paranormal experience. I've never seen a UFO. I've never seen a ghost, even though I believe in them. I've never heard voices. Nothing like that.
So you're a regular Joe.
I'm a totally regular Joe, other than I'm the guy who tries to restore the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx. Other than that, I'm a regular guy. So what happes is I'm thinking, this really sucks. This is horrible.
Now, when did this take place again? Now, when did this happen?
Now remember, it all started around a little over 2 years ago. So 6 months later, all this had happened. Okay, so that's okay. So what happens is what I'm doing is I'm in bed and I'm asleep, and it's real early in the morning, and I hear a voice. And like I said, guys, I never move when I'm asleep. I sleep for between 7 and 8 hours. I don't move, and I very rarely have bad dreams ever. So what happens is I hear this voice and it says to me, it's a man's voice, a regular voice, and it says, Gary, go to the river, face east, stand in the water in your bare feet, face east, and say these words. Now, I'm telling you guys, this, and even as I'm dreaming, I'm thinking in my head, this is amazing. And the words were, the thing I was supposed to say, and I was supposed to say it 3 times, was, Father, 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 holy, 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 where did you come from? Where did you really come from? In Hebrew, the voice told me. Well, I don't know Hebrew. So what I did was so what happens is, and it said, say it 3 times, and you have to face east, and hold your hands up to the sky and look up to the sky. And I said, and naturally I'm thinking, well, this has to mean something, because this all has to do with the Great Pyramid. I found all this stuff, and even though nobody believes me, I got to get down to that river. But first, I have to learn how to say it in Hebrew. So I call one of the rabbis I met, and I said, could you phonetically write this out for me and email it to me? Because they go, what do you want it for? And I said, don't worry about it. So what happens is, what I did, well, he did. So I practiced it, and as you guys can tell just from my phone call, I'm very loud. And it said, say it loud. You know, the voice said, say it in Hebrew and say it loud. So I do. There's maybe about 3 miles from my house here in Arizona, which is, it's actually called Santan, Arizona, Santan Valley, Arizona. There's a small town called Florence, Arizona, and there's a river. It's called the Gila River, like the Gila River Indians, and they actually own a casino. But it's only 3 miles away, and it's not a running water. It's not a running river, but there's this one area where there's kind of like a small lake, but it's the water's filthy. And it's probably 400 or 500 yards off of the main road. So what I do is I pull my truck up, I park on the side, I walk down these 400 or 500 yards, and I figure, look, I have to do this. I just have to do it. So I take off my shoes, and actually I have shorts on. I'm not naked. I stand in the water, I put my hands up, and I yell out, kind of like in a mantra, and I say, Abba, 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 Kadosh, 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 which is Father, 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 Holy, Holy, Holy. And I say in Hebrew, where did you come from? Where did you really come from? And I say it like 3 or 4 times, and I say it really loud. And you got to remember, I'm in the middle of the desert. Like, there's nothing around. And other than that road, and this very scarce, so you can't see anybody. And I think, well, nothing happened. I stood there, and nothing happened. So I washed and it's like I said, it's a really dirty water. So I wipe my feet off. I come back home, and I go to bed. Guys, the next morning, 5:45. I wake up, and guys, I never wake up at 5:45. I usually wake up around 7:50. So it's 5:45. My eyes pop open. I'm covered in sweat. I'm in pretty good shape. I always work out, and I'm covered in sweat. And I go, what's wrong with me? And all of a sudden, I sit up and I look across the room, and I have my laptop with the top open, but it's not on. All of a sudden, it pops on to the NASA photo. I mean, it actually popped on to the NASA photo, and I go, holy cow, man, that must have worked. So when I look at the photo, I can see things that I had never seen before. And I said, oh, my God, I see it. These things, whoever it is, has made some kind of contact with me. And I said, so what happens is, naturally, I get up, I go right down it was maybe 7:30 in the morning. I jump in the truck, I go back down to the river, I yell up the same words, and I talk just like I'm talking to you guys. I go, hey, is this for real? I said, is this a joke? I said, if this is the most amazing thing, I said, if you guys need me to help in any way I can, I'm your man. I'm your boy. Just I'll be there for you. So what happens is I go back home, I look at the photo, I can see so many things in the photo. I mean, guys, like millions and millions of images and all this stuff. And it's just the whole photo is a message. It's a message. Now, are there any questions?
Someone in the chat room just actually put the direct link to the image, so you can see the finer details of it. So it's pretty darn fascinating. Yeah, no, I'm looking at it, and it's so I could see the little divots of everything, and I could see how it could be potentially interpreted. Wow.
Well, it is, but the main thing that I saw, if your people, they shrink the NASA photo down a little bit, and I was talking to Heidi about this earlier when we were on break. Yeah. If you look at the photo, on the right side, the whole photo, if you cut it down the middle, is the Giza Plateau. It looks sandy and gold, and then down below you can see they built some buildings there, but it goes all the way down. Then on the left is Cairo. And what happens is on the right-hand side, and on Heidi's website, or on her the photo I sent her, and hopefully your people can see it. I outlined in red. There's an image there. The whole right side is the left profile of a huge alien. And when I say huge alien, it's his left profile. It's his head is going out of screen. His little nose is where the Great Pyramid is. Then it comes down. You see his mouth, and you see his chin is round, and he has a thick neck. And for your listeners, if you think about Queen Nefertiti, who was Akhenaten's wife, that's the profile. She has the real long, elongated head. It's not like a gray alien. It's like a huge alien with a big head. So if you see it, that is his right profile. His left profile. And he's actually looking across at where the Nile River crosses with that Ring Road. And if you can see that, Heidi, on your
I'm looking
and that
at
cross. Now, when you see that cross up there, that cross. If when you're looking at that cross, if you had a laptop computer, if you tilt the laptop computer back, what will happen is the lights of Cairo will disappear, and there will only be about 10 or 12 lights left. That cross represents the constellation of Cygnus, Cygnus. And what happened was I drew where Ring Road and the Nile River intersect, and I plotted out those lights, and I sent it to astronomers, and they emailed me right back, said, "Oh, this is the constellation of Cygnus." Well, I didn't know it. I just thought it was something because, guys, I'm no astronomer. So they said, "Where did you find this?" And I said, "In a NASA photo." And they said, "You photoshopped it." So anyway. Yeah. Hey, Kevin, I've hit so many walls. It's unbelievable. But
I bet.
I never stop. So what happens is, and I put the cart before the horse a little bit here again, because the profile of that huge alien is looking up there at the constellation of Cygnus, but I didn't know that at first. But I can tell you the story of how I found out everything and knew that was Cygnus, and that's where they come from. But go. Are there any questions?
Well, as I'm looking at the face, honestly, the two pyramids kind of look like eyeballs if you shove them.
Well, they're not. They're not.
You're saying that's the nose.
What you do? No, the nose is just above the Great Pyramid a little bit, and it's a little kind of like a pointy thing.
Yeah,
and
a little point.
Yes. Now, the eye would forget the other two pyramids because the eye would be up where the eye would be. As a matter of fact, if you see his huge head, you come down and he kind of has a brow. There's kind of a round little brow.
A thick one, yeah.
Yeah, a thick one, exactly. And it almost looks like a little road that runs down there. And then what you do is you come down the brow, and then you have the little pointy nose, and you have his lip, and then you have his mouth, which you can see they have buildings in there. And then he has a round chin, and there's a thick neck.
Well, what do you say to critics that say, well, I could look at the clouds and I could see something in it too? So what do you say to critics that say that? Yeah.
Oh, here's what I say. Let me just say this. Yes, what happens is this. If people take their time, yes, you can see anything in for sure you can. But if your listeners, and you guys, if you take 20 minutes, 30 minutes, a half hour, and it's hard to instruct you guys over the phone, right? But I did it with NASA because the guy, we talked directly, and I told him, get in the dark room and call me. Yeah. So what I want to offer your listeners is this, because I've had many emails come to me, and they say, well, you're nuts, you're just insane. And I said, did you look at the photo? Did you take your time and look? And they said, well, no. I said, well, then I'm not insane. So what I'd like to do because of that, I'd like to give out an email address that I have where any of your listeners, if they want to email me so I can send them instructions, it's very easy. They'll see everything. So can I give that email address?
Feel free.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, thank you, guys. It's g.parker, Parker, 3636, Gary, Gary, at AOL.com. That's g.parker, 36, Gary, at AOL.com, and the Gary only has one R. So if any of your listeners want to email me and they're having a hard time seeing it, believe me, I'll send them instructions because I have them all written out. Same thing I sent to NASA, and you will see it. You'll see everything. As a matter of fact, guys, I had done a couple other radio shows, and I got some emails from people in Texas. And on Saturday, I actually, a week ago, they said, Gary, we want to meet with you, and we want you to show us everything. So I said, no problem. So I'm very lucky. Over here in Florence, there's a community room that you get for free, and I met with 10 people, drove out from Texas, and I met with them, and I showed them everything.
How fun!
Said, Gary, it was unbelievable, but it was so fun for me because it was unbelievable. And they said, Gary, this is going to change the world. And I said, yeah. I said, it's supposed to. I said, and I'm just so lucky that I'm the messenger.
Gary, but we're just about ready to our top of the hour break, and this is fascinating stuff, but we'll be right back. Thanks. After the break. Well, it's great being back with Gary and Heidi, and if this isn't fascinating, you guys can't be fascinated by anything.
Serious.
Let me get out of your way, Gary, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but we had to take that break, but the floor is yours.
Well, okay, so this is now, even though this all is crazy and it's all exciting, the craziest thing is about to happen. And so since I went down to the river those 2 times, I went back at least once or twice a week because I would just yell up, hey, if there's anything that you can show me more, or you can help me out. And plus, like I said, it didn't take long to walk to the water, and I figure, what the heck? So what happens is one night, and I had been to the river, I'm going to say maybe 35, 36 times. And remember, now it's been almost a year since all this happened. And so I go down to the river. I'm sorry. I have a dream, and the voice comes to me again, and it says, go to the river. Go to the river. I said, okay. So I get up in the morning. I go down to the river, and the date was actually July 26th, 2016. Now, you got to remember that the photo was downloaded onto the internet on July 26, 2012.
Right.
And the rabbi gave me that date, July 26, 2022, which I didn't know anything about. So the voice says to me, go to the river. So I go to the river. I stand in the river. I do my spiel, and all of a sudden, guys, remember, I'm facing east, okay? I'm in the water. I'm facing east. Above me, just east, I see kind of like in the sky, like crystals. It almost looks like a circular thing moving of crystals. So like the sky is being warped somehow. And I go, uh-oh, something's going to show up. So I'm too excited. And all of a sudden, and you got to remember, I haven't told you everything I saw in the NASA photo, but in the NASA photo for that past year, there are many, many people and many, many things in it, and they all have names written in Hebrew that I had the rabbis translate for me. So I saw these people in this photo. So this will come into play in a second. So all of a sudden, the crystals start to move over the water. Okay, when I say over the water, maybe 20 or 30 feet off the water. And like I said, it's like a small lake. So I'm thinking something's going to appear. Well, then it almost looks like the sky has a rip in it, right? And these crystals flatten out like a platform. And below the platform, 2 angels pop up. And I know that sounds crazy, but I am telling you, if you guys are familiar with it, did you ever hear of a guy named Ezekiel?
Nah. Yes, of course.
Okay. Yeah, he's the guy that saw the spinning wheels and everything, right? And he saw 4 angels that had like dual. They both had 2 sets of wings. Okay. Well, in my thing, there's 2 angels, and they're not angels. They're actually called cherubim. They have 4 faces. And what happens is the wheels are there and all that, and I'm thinking, oh man, this is an Ezekiel deal, but there's only 2 of them and not 4. So the angel on the left, when I look at his face, I see that face because I've seen it in the photo. And when I sent his name, which was written in Hebrew, I sent to the Judaic scholar and to the rabbis. They both said, Gary, that says Uriel. Well, naturally, I Googled that, and he's like some real big famous angel or something. Oh, guys, I forgot to tell you. I've never, in the past 40 years, I've never been to a church or a temple or a synagogue. I've never been a religious guy. I was born and raised Episcopalian, but after 11 years old, we never went back to church again. So my whole life's been hopefully doing the golden rule thing. Treat people the way you want to be treated.
And you've got I'm a Jesus book author, and here's Kevin, a Marian apparition author.
Okay. So what happens is so back to the story. So here's these guys, and they're flapping their wings, and I look at that Uriel guy, and I say, "You're Uriel," and he goes, "Yeah, Gary, yes, I am." And he said, "And Abba wants to speak to you." Now you got to remember, I've been saying Abba, 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 which is Father, Father, Father. All of a sudden, above these guys on this platform shows up that alien. Shows up the alien that has the profile there on the Giza Plateau, his left profile. Now, also, I forgot to tell you that these two angels were anywhere between 18 and 20 feet tall, and they were hovering above the water. And they were too far away from me to touch. But, guys, they didn't look real. It looked like a projected image. And I actually said to Uriel, I said, "Is there only," I said, "Ezekiel saw 4 of you guys. Is there only 2 because you're closer to Earth?" And he said, "Yes, we're closer to Earth. That's why there's only 2 of us."
Were their mouths moving, or were they speaking to your mind?
Not theirs.
Oh, okay.
Not theirs. His mouth was moving. So we were having a conversation. So what happens is then Abba, the main alien. Oh, also Heidi, on the photos I sent you, did you scroll down and see the one that I drew of the alien?
Yes.
It's right. You can see it. That's what he looked like. Here's the only thing though. The cherubim on their left side, they were a lion. On their right side, they were actually ravens, not eagles, because I had read that what's his name, Ezekiel had said they were ravens. And on top, they look like bulls or ogres, but when they look at you straight on, they look like humans. And they also kind of look like burnt brass. It looked like to me like they were in and out of different dimensions, like when you watch a sci-fi movie. So anyway, so all of a sudden, the big alien shows up, and I looked at him and I said, "What should I call you?" Now, he did not speak with his mouth. He spoke telepathically, and he goes, "Call me Abba." Now, the one thing about his face, though, yes, he had an alien face, but inside his face were between 60 and 70 men and women, and they all look like biblical characters. Like if you saw Jesus or if you saw Moses, however they look, but it was men and women, and they were all speaking all at once, and it sounded like a form of Hebrew, which it may have been Aramaic, but I don't know how that sounds. But it sounded, and it was loud, and they were all talking at the same time. But Abba, the big alien's voice, cut through, and he said, "Yes, Gary, I'm Abba." And naturally, guys, I forgot to tell you, he was around 30 feet tall. He had huge shoulders, huge hands, and he was wearing a red robe that had Hebrew written on it, and it kept changing. And on his chest, he was huge. I couldn't see his feet because they were kind of melted into the crystals. So what happens is yes, and he looked like he was on fire, but he didn't look real either. He looked like a projected image. And naturally, guys, I'm so excited about seeing this. It was so fun. And also for the past year, I had seen him and everybody else that I was seeing in the water in this photo. So I was ready to see it. So it didn't scare me at all. Also, I was dying for anybody to walk past this river so they could see it, so I could have someone. So, guys, what happens is I hear, now you remember I'm out in the middle of the desert, and a lot of kids ride and it's July 26, 2016, and a lot of kids ride dirt bikes out there, or ATVs. So I hear, and I look, and I turned away, even though the main alien, or Abba, is standing there, and I turned away from him because I'm thinking, oh my God, there's somebody here, they're going to see this, this is going to be so great. Some kid on a small dirt bike, he must have been 12 or 13 years old, he pulls up to the bank of this water, and he goes, "Hey, mister, what are you doing in that filthy water?" And I said, "Kid, can you see it?" And Abba actually said to me in my head, he said, "Gary, that no one can see us but you at this time." And And look, guys, I know I wasn't calling the guy a liar, but I was so excited that somebody was there.
Right.
I turned away from him, and I looked at the kid, and I said, "Can you see anything in that water?" He goes, "No, man." He goes, "But that water's disgusting. You better get out of there." I said, "Kid," I said, "Thanks, kid." I said, "But I'm doing some religious praying." So he takes off, and I swear this happened, guys. I turned back to Abba and to Uriel, and they both rolled their eyes like, "What a jerk!" Like I wouldn't pay attention. I'm serious. So all of a sudden, I was even more relaxed because I thought, okay, they know I'm not perfect, and it's like, yes, this is exciting, but I want to share it with someone. And I looked at them and said, "Guys, give me a break. This doesn't happen every day." So Abba said, "Gary, you have to concentrate. I'm going to show you things. I'm going to tell you things." So he starts telling me these things, and I said, since I'm sorry, guys, since I'm talking way too fast, since Uriel told me that you're closer to Earth, does that mean you're returning to Earth? And he said, "Yes, we will be returning." Now, this is Abba. He said, "We will return the date that the rabbi told you." I said, "July 26, 2022. He said, "Yes." I said, "Where will you? Will you return back to Egypt?" He said, "No, we're going to return. I'll return. We will return to the Temple Mount in Israel." Well, you guys know what the Temple Mount is, for sure. Right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So what happens is, and I said, "That's awesome." I said, "Do the Jews have to build the third temple?" They said, "No." Abba said, "I will be returning in the third temple." Well, there's a lot of, like I said, when I showed the rabbis this and told them about it, they said, "Gary, that's impossible." And I said, "Well, there's a Jewish a rabbi sage from the 1500s whose name was Rashi, and he predicted. He said, God will come down from the sky in the third temple, and that's just what Abba told me." So I said, "Okay, I got it, no problem." I said, he said, "Gary, you know what you have to do." And I said, "Yeah, but it would be so much better if you would show up and show some people and help me out." And he said, "You're doing a good job." He didn't say it like that, guys, but it sounded like that in my head. Just keep doing what you're doing. And he said, think of other means of communication. Then I automatically thought paranormal radio. Right in my head, I thought that right away. So then I actually said to him, I said, "Well, how will the third temple look?" Because naturally I'm thinking in my head, the day the Earth stood still with the flying saucer landing in Washington, D.C.
I love
it. So I said, "How will the third temple look?" And he said, "It will look like this." And in my head, I saw an image. Now, I don't know if you guys remember, Keanu Reeves had a movie. They remade The Day the Earth Stood Still. And
yes.
when he returned, it was kind of a huge globe that spun constantly, and it looked like a multi-dimensional craft, and it was like blue and black, and it spun, it rotated, and it landed in what's the name of the place? The park, Central Park in New York. Well, he said, this is what it will look like. So I said, great, fantastic, because naturally I go back to movies, and I realized that's from the day the Earth stood still. That's what it's going to look like. So anyway, so yes. Any questions?
Well, there's an interesting question here in the chat room. Someone's asking if there's a difference in seeing the layers if you view it on an LCD versus an LED screen.
Guys, that's a really good question. I had told Kevin once before that I'm technologically challenged. So I've been looking at the photo on my 1998 Toshiba. So
that has kind of a texture to it. That's what I was thinking. And it kind of highlights things differently with that kind of screen.
Yeah, and it may. But the main things that I can email back to your listeners, they'll be able to see them, and then they'll see more and more, because the entire photo is a message. Even if you look at the image upside down, there's a message there. There's more writing, and there's 4 levels deep. And each level contains millions and millions of people, and they all have names written, all of them. There's tens of millions of people, and all their names are written in Hebrew. And I said to Abba, I said to him, I said, what about what is it called when everybody when God shows up? There's going to be a what does he do? At the end of times, he's supposed to do Judgment Day.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I said to him, I said, is there going to be a Judgment Day? And he says, no. He said, Gary, those souls have already gone on. He said, I'm not going to bring people back to life. He said, in the NASA photo are tens of millions and maybe even billions of people, and they all have names. That's bringing the dead back to life. He said, that's what's bringing the dead back. And I said, that's fantastic. I said, because people would be terrified if the dead came back to life.
Okay, I don't mean to interrupt, but we're at our last, Gary, we're at our last break.
No problem.
We'll be right back in just a few seconds.
Okay.
Well, it's good to be back with Gary and Heidi, and this is some wild stuff. Gary,
yeah.
It's insane, man. It's insane.
It really is. It really is.
It's totally nuts. But the one cool thing is, you guys might say to yourself, well, Gary, how did all the stuff get in the photo? And I asked Abba that. I said, Abba, how did this get in the photo? And he said, Gary, the Great Pyramid is and always has been a machine, and it still works on vibration. And I said, is there a way you can show me, or in my head, show me how I can show everybody how the Great Pyramid works? And he showed me. He showed me how to turn it on. Well, it's actually on, but he actually showed me how to show everyone that it works. But I think we only have till 7:30. So hopefully, if you guys could ever invite me back, I'll explain how it works.
Okay, sure.
A cliffhanger.
Oh, yes.
Love it. So this Abba, he spoke to you directly. He gave you specific instructions on what to do to help restore.
No.
Or what did he? What was his main purpose for showing up to you?
His main purpose was to show me that and to let me know that they were coming, and what they were going to do, and where they were going to show up, and what day they were going to show up, and also how to show human beings or the Earth how the Great Pyramid works, and how guys, it's amazing. But like I said, I can't get into it because it would take another hour and a half of explaining. And you would see it. You would see it working.
So what happened to your whole restoring project then?
Well, that went to the that kind of went on the back burner. It had to, because after finding all this stuff, I realized that when this craft and these beings show up, it's going to be terrifying. I actually had rabbis had said to me, Gary, if God shows up, we're going to be dancing in the streets. And I said, Rabbi, you're going to be crapping your pants because you don't know what it looks like, and it's going to show up. And not only that, but you're an adult. Your children and grandchildren are going to be terrified because you're going to think it's an invasion because you have no idea what it looks like. But I'm telling you what it looks like, and so my job is to show everybody everything in this photo, explain it to them, so when it does show up, people don't jump off buildings, almost like what it was at the day. A War of the Worlds.
Oh, yeah.
So this Abba was essentially, you felt, was God that showed up?
Well, actually, I asked him. I said, listen, the Jews and many, many scholars that I talked to think that God is a spiritual being. He has no chest or head or arms. I said, you have arms and a head and everything. I said, you're a biological creature. I said, did you create us? And he said, yes. We, he didn't say I, he said, we created mankind. And I said, well, okay. I said, I get that. I said, who created you? And he said, we don't know. And I said, that's awesome. I said, that's awesome.
Did he refer to himself as a certain title?
No, he called himself. He told me to call him Abba, which is father, but he always referred to himself as we. And when I say we, he had between 60 and 70 people, and they're not just people; those are souls. This being knows how to manipulate souls. That, like I said, guys, I could go on for another 2 hours. In the NASA photo, you can see if you tilt the NASA photo all the way back, be in a dark room, all the way back, all the way back, all you will see are the lights from the pyramids will shine. Okay, the picture of that alien Abba is like when they said in the Bible, God created light. The light was knowledge, and that knowledge is the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx. The Great Pyramid and the other two pyramids. And if you look above where Abba's eye would be in the profile, you will see the alien that I drew, and he is actually manipulating souls, and he's putting them into the bodies of apes.
The bodies of apes?
Yes, apes. Yes. Yeah, and guys,
So
I could go on and
why
on.
is that? Why is that? What's the
Because
point of that?
evolution got as far as apes. They've done this. The other thing too is there are thousands of Great Pyramids on thousands of planets. They manage thousands of planets. They've done this through many galaxies. So yes, this is the things he told me and showed me. But guys, I couldn't get into it because it's just too much.
That's okay. Did he say anything about there being a devil? Is there an opposing force?
There is, but it's not. It's the way the Jews believe the devil, and it's not the devil. It's actually it's called Satan. So and actually the God and the Lord of the underworld is what we call the devil. But everybody works for him. Is Jesus in this photo? In 3 places, yes. And he's a big deal. He's a big deal. And I asked Abba, I said, is Jesus your son? And he said, yes. I said, is Satan your son? He said, yes. And I said, are they gods? And he said, no. He said, it's just me. So guys, but I'm telling you, I could go on for 3 more hours.
No, that's fine. But have you ever heard of when you're presented with something like this, especially in the Christian faith, they say test the spirit to see if it truly. Because when I had my Jesus encounters, I was told, "Did you test the spirit to see if it was really Jesus?" What did you do? What let you know that this was truly what it was, instead of, like you're saying, the technology is available to project something. You said it looked like a projection, and people will contest that projections have been made of Mary, of UFOs, of Jesus, and things in the sky. So how do you know with certainty that this really was taking place?
Oh, nobody knows for certain, but
no, for yourself.
I've been doing this
I could tell you why for myself, why I felt Jesus was in front of me. So what was it that told you this 100% was the real deal for you?
Well, I've been doing it for over 2 years. I've met with numerous academics. I've met with religious scholars, biblical scholars, Judaic scholars, Aramaic scholars. I've met with priests and rabbis. I've put so much time into this. So, yeah, all the proof is there. Man's evolution is in this photo. Everything, a reincarnation, it's all about souls. Actually, they use souls to power this craft that's going to land on the. So yes, to answer your question, I have no doubt. But if your listeners or you or Kevin put a little time into it, you'll see it, and it will be. I've been doing it for a little over 2 years, so I see everything. And actually, I met him. So yes. And if you met Jesus, that's great. I'm glad. I'm happy for you.
But like for me, like I tell people, my every cell in my body screamed, "It's Jesus." I could have been blind and seen it was him. Like my soul screamed it. What did your soul tell you? What's you're experiencing?
Well, I actually asked Abba. I said, when was the last time you were here? You and everybody else that's under your, in this photo. And he said the last time we were here was a little over 2,000 years ago. So they haven't been back here since then. So when I hear things, now, like I said, I'm not saying you didn't meet Jesus. That's great, but they weren't close enough to the planet for any other people. They were in some other universe for them to have shown up here. So people that say they've seen him, that's great. That's great. I really hope he did, and I hope you did. But from him telling me, hey, look, dude, Heidi, this is so out there. It's amazing. But if you guys look at the photo and you study a little bit and you email me and ask questions, I'll show you everything, and all the answers are in the photo.
Well, they say God is everywhere, So.
Yeah, which isn't true.
Well, but now hold on. You've been going at this for 2 years, and there's people that have been involved in these things and experienced things for many more years now. And one thing that's always, when it comes to religion, when it comes to faith, it's difficult to poo-poo others for what they believe to be true for themselves, because that can rip you down quickly. So it's good to be a little bit careful because you can turn a lot of people off with that.
See, because this guy and everything that we consider gods, they're not perfect beings. We're not perfect. They're not perfect. They're just a higher evolved than we are. They're not perfect. And they can't be everywhere at every time. So when people say God's everywhere, no, he's not. You know who God is? We are. We have God inside us. So, yes, if God is everywhere, because we are. Yeah.
That's a new age thought. That's how they feel.
I didn't know that.
It's very new age.
But come down to the river. Both of you guys, come down to the river. Come down to the river with me.
Well, now, Gary, I sure appreciate it. I sure appreciate it, Gary. It's been some awful, fascinating material. We better mention the next show and then shuffle off into the night. But we'll sure send you a link.
Definitely.
Well, guys, thank you so much for having me on board, and I'm sorry if I'm too much of a hammer on the nail. I'm sorry.
That's
I had a great time.
That's fine.
Interesting story for sure. Yeah, you take care, Gary.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Wow. Well, I don't know, Heidi.
So we'll just throw our faiths out the window, I guess. I don't know. I'm
Heidi,
just kidding.
I've experienced the holy, and you don't doubt it.
Same here. Yeah, I'm always weary. When somebody will say outright, "Well, you're wrong," that's not right. So you have to be careful when it comes to people's faiths, because there's a lot of miracles that are going on every day, and a lot of witnesses, and God keeps speaking every day to everybody. So He
does, and when I experienced, say, the odor of sanctity and stuff, I knew that was it. It's no doubt, that was the real deal. But anyhow. Now, next week, we've got another real deal, and Pam Geller, and you're going to be AWOL, but she and I will have a good time. And she has the Geller report, and her main cause is the Islamization of Western society and
I'm so glad I won't be here. I'm going to be at a bookstore, Heirloom Books in Chicago. Join me. I'll be talking my books and doing book signing.
Well, Pam and I'll be just fine.
Thank goodness.
But I may even get Megan on in your place while you're gone.
Oh, please.
But anyhow, we better shove off into the night, but it's been very interesting.
All right. You have a good one. Good night, everybody.